Good morning, students. Welcome to online class. Hope you are keeping well by the grace of God. So guys, today I am with you to teach you social science history segment from your NCERT book, chapter number 2, and the heading is Socialism in Europe and the Russian Revolution. So once again guys, a review of the previous chapter or just a brushing up of the previous chapter. In previous chapter, I taught you about French Revolution which took place in 1789. And French Revolution, this incident or this revolution, it did not take place abruptly or suddenly. A series of rebels, a series of struggle and movement took place one after another, and then the eruption took place that is called or known as French Revolution. So in French Revolution, I discussed about the three categories in the society, and those three categories were the first estate, the second estate and the third estate. The first estate, it was dominated or it was controlled by the Ecclesiastical Authority. Ecclesiastical, students, you open your notebook and note down the spelling of ecclesiastical. E-C-C-L-E-S-I-A-S-T-I-C-A-L. Ecclesiastical body or authority. Ecclesiastical means the society, it was regulated by this body, that means the people, those who were attached to the churches, related to the churches, as bishop, the priests, the friars, the clergymen, the monks. They used to regulate the contemporary France. And then the second estate, they were the nobles and the feudal lords. They used to overpower the common men, they used to regulate the common men, and simultaneously they were close to the king, whoever was the king during that time, and they, you can say, they were the flatterers of the king. And the third estate, that means the common men, they were the most sufferers and they were the victims of the situation. So those common men, that means the peasants, landless farmers, the laborers, the workers, the thinkers, the philosophers, the doctors, the artisans, the lawyers, they were the common men known as the third estate. So the condition of third estate, it was worse. They were poor, they could not afford, but in spite of that, heavy tax was imposed on them. So these are the series of struggles, these are the series of sufferings. Then as a result, French Revolution took place, and the three concepts of French Revolution were that liberty, equality and fraternity. On the basis of three concepts, revolution took place, or those struggles or those movements were going on. Apart from that, the condition or the status of women day by day, that means gradually, became worse. Previously, women, that means the female sex, they were not allowed to cross the threshold. They were only look after the children, their family, their husbands. But later on, the situation became worse and France was facing an intense economic crisis due to Louis XVI, because of his luxurious and extravagant attitude. So as consequence, the royal court, it was empty. There was no fun in the royal court, and people, they were fighting for food, they were fighting for bread. There was no food. There was an intense crisis of food in the market, and the price of anything, that means any commodity. It was so high that common men, they could not afford it. As a result, the women also, along with the children, that means the minors, they also started working in factories and mills to earn money, or to the women, they started working to feed their children or to fill the stomach of their family members. Thus, the French Revolution took place. So, in between, the Jacobin club, I told you, a middle class category, they emerged and they formed a club or team or group known as Jacobin club, and that club, they emerged as the activists. They were educating the common man, because in France during that time, the peasants, the laborers, the daily wagers, they were illiterate, they were uneducated. So who will educate them? Who will tell about the awareness, or who will say about the contemporary situation? So this Jacobin club, or the members of this Jacobin club, they started educating them about the contemporary economic, political and social situation, or the crisis France was passing through. Then when Louis XVI along with the Queen Marie Antoinette, they were killed in guillotine, then one of the social activists known as Robespierre, he emerged and he started ruling France as the leader. But gradually, initially or previously, everything was going well. His administration, his law and order, it was going fine, and he started ruling and he could control the contemporary system or the situation. But you know guys very well, whenever an individual he gets power, he starts misusing the power. So as consequence, Robespierre started misusing his power, and then without any reason, without any major fault or guilt, you can say, that he was executing people, he was putting people into the prison behind the bars. So later on, when he became a tyrant leader or became a tyrant person, then through his rigid and harsh rules and regulations, his own fellow men, that means who were the supporters of Robespierre, they started agitation against him. They started raising their voices against him, and they became their rivals or enemies. As consequence or as a result, Robespierre also murdered in guillotine. After that, anyhow, the system, it was going on. Then one of the army men, he emerged, known as Napoleon Bonaparte. Napoleon Bonaparte, he was a general in French army. He was a good warrior, and when he became the leader of France, he controlled France in such a good manner that French, they started praising him. They started praising his administration, his army, because Napoleon, he wanted to establish France on the basis of army or military force, because he was a general. But once again, the same factor happened with Napoleon as happened with Robespierre. When he became powerful and people, they were totally entirely dependent on Napoleon for his administrative rules and administrative power and everything, many things he had imposed on France, and those were the welfare of the people of France. But later on, gradually, he became dictator. And autocracy, it was quite visible during the time. And then he started overpowering the French people. He was ruling France as the dictator or as an autocrat. Then once again, his own supporters, they raised their voices. They started agitation against him, and as consequence, Napoleon, in between, that means meanwhile, that battle of Waterloo took place. And in the battle of Waterloo, it took place in 1815, and Napoleon was badly defeated, and then he was sent on exile